This is all the equipment we use to drive and camp across Australia.
We're Johannes and Allison. We flew from Canada to Australia, bought a 20-year-old budget 4-wheel drive Land Cruiser Prado with over 400,000 kilometers on it and set off on an adventure across Australia, from Sydney to Perth, camping most nights along the way. Our goal was to experience as much of the country as possible while sticking to a relatively tight budget. We kept things as simple as possible, picking up only the essential camping gear. Nothing fancy, just what we needed to get out into the backcountry. In this video, we're breaking down all of the gear we used, what worked well, and what we'd do differently. Stick around to the end, where I'll go over the total cost of our setup and how much we got back after selling everything before heading home.
Hey everyone, welcome to this All Terrain Trails episode. Let's get into the equipment that we used. I'd like to go into some of the things that worked really well for us, some of the things that didn't work so well, and give you guys a good sense of what you really need to take a big trip like this. Okay, starting off in no particular order, we have our fold-out table. This thing was a great budget option. We did a lot of cooking on it. One of the first things you need when you pull up to camp is a table, somewhere to put some of the stuff. Then we have a little bit of recovery equipment here. We were going to be doing some off-roading, some sand driving, and we were alone, so we needed a way to self-recover. So we have our tire gauge here and a way to air down your tires. We have our kinetic snatch strap here, good for pulling us out. We did need to use this a couple times for ourselves and for other people on the trails that we found were stuck. And then we also have a set of max tracks here. We use these on several occasions, especially on the beach and in some soft sand, to get ourselves out of a pickle. Those things really are worth their weight in gold. We didn't opt for a fridge this time because the vehicle that we're in is just a very basic Land Cruiser Prado. No modifications to it, so no dual battery systems, no way to really run a fridge. So we opted for the good old-fashioned ice cooler made by Igloo here. Holds ice for between 2 and 3 days in our experience. The annoying thing about this is you do have to top up on ice frequently, but if you stuff 2 or 3 bags in there, you can get quite a few days out of it actually. And it's just a good, simple overall option to carry fresh food. For our sleeping accommodations, we did the Australian swag. Super easy, super basic, very cost effective. Great way to do some camping. And you know what, it's actually really comfortable. And then inside the tent goes your sleeping foam pad. And this thing is actually self-inflatable. So you roll it up when you're done with it and it squishes all the air out of it. And then at nighttime, when you roll out your swag, you unroll this thing and it just self-inflates. It kind of absorbs the air. And there's really a thick foam pad in there. One of the only ways we were able to sleep on the ground comfortably for about 30 nights. We have our kitchen box. We kept it super basic. Everything to run a small cooking operation. We didn't want a whole lot of time needing to set up all of this crazy complicated equipment, so we really kept it to the bare minimum. We have our coffee cups here. Okay, a couple coffee cups, a pot, a grate, little cutlery set here. It's a basic set of plates, a self-sharpening kitchen knife, a spatula, your cooking gas, sink, and one of my favorite things, and you never want to forget a can opener. These things are so handy and so easily forgotten. Opening a can of soup for a meal is just such an easy meal. It's a good way to get in some calories after a long, hard day behind the wheel. So a can of soup is great, but I have pulled up to camp so many times and realized that I don't have a way to open my can of soup. Now, one of my favorite bits of kit is this little gas stove here. It's the most basic thing ever, really. There's not even any wind guards on it, and that would be my number one gripe with it, is there's no guards on the side. But you know what? I think we paid like $30 for this thing. It's got 2 burners. It's got a nice stovepipe here that screws into the side. And honestly, it's just a robust little gas cooker that cooked almost all of our meals, really. It packs away really nice in this cooking box, and there's just no fluff about it. It's super easy, it's super basic, super easy fold out like soccer chairs, right? We wanted to spend most of our money on fuel and adventure stuff, so some of the equipment is expensive, but some of it is just really not, and you are able to go the cheaper option. Like with our table over here, we definitely went a little bit cheaper on the table. Chairs, you know what, some could argue that you're gonna be spending a lot of time in the chair at camp, so get a really good one, get a really comfortable one. But you know what, we just don't spend a whole lot of time sitting around at camp, so I opted to go with a little bit cheaper of a chair, but they're still pretty comfortable. We have a air compressor. This was a gift. If you're gonna air down your tires, you need a way to air them back up. I have to say though, this case is not great. I really don't like the case that it came in, but hey, sometimes you can get these nice bags that you put them in, but you know what, did the job for us. Next we have a 10-liter jerry can. We just carried this around empty, and you know what, it was just for insurance purposes in case something happened and we ran out of gas and we needed to get into town and fill up gas. This was going to be our solution. We've got our super easy North Face bag. It used to be a backpack style, but I've really just converted it into one strap that goes across into kind of a duffel bag, and that's my primary suitcase. I've had this bag for a long time. It's been on a lot of our adventures. It's water resistant. It's very good quality. The North Face always makes some good quality stuff, so that was my primary suitcase. And inside the suitcase, gosh, we all know how horrible the inside of a suitcase can get sometimes after a few days of travel. Everything just gets all jumbled up. So one of the things I found on this trip that was really good was having these suitcase organizers for your t-shirts, your socks, your underwear. Something that you can just organize the inside of your suitcase with really goes a long way for prolonged adventure, because it's the little things that add up, and it's the little things that start to get really annoying, and it's the little things that you need to get right. So the inside of a suitcase being messy all the time, it can get a bit annoying, right? So if you can just take these little things and just make them a little bit better, your overall experience will be so much better. We just chose the option of two 20-liter jerry cans of water. One of them has a spout. I can tell you it's always better to have the spout. This one doesn't have the spout, and it just makes things very annoying. So very basic way to store your water. We had about 42 liters. This one's 22 liters. We had about 42 liters of water total. If I had the choice, I would actually get probably one more of these 20s, or maybe even a 10, carry at least 50 to 60 liters. I think that we could have carried more water, but it ended up being okay for our situation. One of the important things to remember is a tire repair kit. We actually brought this all the way from Canada. I just tried to save myself, you know, 50 bucks I think this was on buying one here, so I brought mine from home, and it's just a great little kit here. It comes with your plugs and your tools and some pliers and some valve stems and the core tool, and you know, all the good stuff that you would need to patch up a tire is in this simple little case. Now you can go and buy these things individually. That's what I've done in the past and made my own kit, but you know, it's just super easy to buy a kit that's already made, and we've carried this one around for a while now, and thankfully have never had to use it, actually, knock on wood. But you know, good to carry if you're going remote, if you're going out there by yourselves, if you're going off-roading, carry a tire repair kit. As for spares and tools, we carried a few things here. I'll just go through them quickly. We carried some fluids here with us. We carried just some zip ties. That's bug spray. We carried, this is just kind of miscellaneous. This is tent pegs. But you know, not many spare parts, because the vehicle that we chose has plenty of spare parts around. So we didn't carry too many spare parts here, but just, you know, screwdrivers, knives. This is a socket set here that we carried. More bug spray, because the bugs out in the outback are horrific. Extra batteries, some epoxy, some glue or contact cement. This stuff will save your butt in an emergency, whether it's you've poked a hole somewhere that there shouldn't be a hole, let's say in your radiator. Sometimes you can repair stuff with this, so I always like to carry that. Another set of pliers here, and just like, you know, more glue. We have some tape, some duct tape, some really strong adhesive, because you know, I've been in situations where actually I blew a pinhole in my radiator hose at one point, and I was able to put some super glue on the pinhole and then wrap it with duct tape, and that was a good enough fix to get us home. So just a very, very basic toolkit. If it's anything needing repair that is beyond the capabilities of this toolkit, I'm probably going to opt to not do it in the field myself if I can help it. All right, I just wanted to touch on some of the electronics we used to keep ourselves going: charge batteries, navigate, communicate. Those are the big three things we used electronics for. I'll show you what we carry here. For communication, we use the Garmin InReach Explorer Plus. And we've had this for a couple of years now. It has done great. It sends out text messages no matter where you are. As long as you have a clear view of the sky, this thing will send out a message that you can custom type out if you need help, if you need an emergency, or if you just need to ask your friend to bring you some more beer on his way to the camp spot, right? It also has an SOS button on the side, so if things do go very wrong, you can press that button and help will come. So we've carried this for a while. It really gives us that peace of mind that there's always somebody on the other end of this that can help us if we need it. For navigation, we use number 1, our cell phones, number 2, paper maps, and number 3, the Garmin Overlander. This thing is great. You do need to download maps for Australia. This one was from Canada, and we didn't realize that it actually doesn't really work very well when we come to Australia. So download some proper maps for this thing if you're taking it outside of the country that you bought it in. We're just charging our cell phones around camp when the vehicle's not running. Just a simple power brick does the job. Nothing fancy about this. And during the day, we just charge our phone off the car. And that's what I wanted to get into next, on how we charge our camera batteries and how we keep all of our other batteries topped up. And that comes down to this magical little thing. It's a 12 volt and it converts it into what like our phones and laptops and cameras need. It is so easy. I don't even remember where we bought it or how long we've had it, but if you need something simple and reliable to get your 1 or 2 camera batteries charged and maybe a cell phone or a laptop, one of these things just goes such a long way. It has 2 wall plugins and 2 USBs, so anything that plugs into a wall, you bet you can plug it into this and then plug it right into your 12 volt into the car. So that's what we use for navigation, communication, and charging equipment. A simple first aid kit, just some bandages, some gauze, some cleaning antiseptic wipes, tweezers. Good idea to have one out with you on the trail when you're camping. Last but not least here, one of the major pieces of equipment that we used to cross Australia was, you guessed it, the Prado. And I have so many good things to say about this truck. It is in such good shape. Number 1, I can't believe that this thing has over 400,000 kilometers. If I had to guess and I didn't know and I took a look at the condition of this thing, I would say there's probably 50,000 kilometers on it. It is literally like brand new, not a speck of rust on it. I did put a few pinstripes on it, so now the paintwork isn't perfect anymore, but really I was surprised at how well this thing has held up over let's see, 20 years now. It's a 2004, so this thing is 20 years old with 400,000+ kilometers on it, and I'm just shocked at how well this thing has stood the test of time. It drove us all the way across Australia. What did we do on it? We did a transmission flush and we did an oil change on it. Those 2 things, just basic maintenance items. We did those about halfway across our trip, and that's really all we did. We haven't needed to put too much money into it other than fuel and an oil change and a transmission flush. It doesn't ask a lot from us. It does the job, and it got us all the way across the continent with little dramas. This thing is just super solid. It's got your low range 4-wheel drive. It's got high range 4-wheel drive. It's got the V6 petrol 1GR engine. Very popular over here. That's one of the main reasons we wanted to buy this thing, is because of how readily available parts are for it. And frankly, these things are everywhere, so if we did get into some trouble, help wouldn't be too far away for this thing. It has just done so good. I'm just so impressed with that 1GR engine and transmission package. And the one thing I would say that this thing could benefit from, because it's completely stock right now, the one thing I would say it could benefit from would be some more ground clearance. We have really beat the heck out of the skid plate underneath. We have banged it off of rocks. We're constantly dragging it through sand and other, mud and dirt. We're constantly bottoming out on stuff. It definitely, its weakest point, I would say, is its ground clearance. I would say there's super reliable. They'll go, if properly maintained, they'll go at least 400,000 Ks. But I would recommend a slightly taller tire and a minimal lift kit if it's in your budget. Those 2 things would just make this thing unstoppable. And you know what? For 2 people, there's plenty of room for your cooler, your swag, your water jugs, your suitcases, your chairs, all the stuff. We had plenty of room to carry all of our stuff around. Coming from a pop-top Troopy with ample amounts of room and payload and everything you could imagine, I thought this thing was going to be kind of a step down, and frankly, I thought it was going to feel quite flimsy compared to the 75 series Land Cruiser, because these Prados are technically light-duty Land Cruisers. That's why they're called the Land Cruiser Prado. They're not the full-spec, heavy-duty Land Cruiser. They're kind of that lighter-duty version. And you know what? I would argue and say that this thing feels just as durable as my Land Cruiser Troopy at home, which is kind of weird to say because it has the independent suspension up front. And thinking back to my days of the 3rd Gen 4Runner, that thing felt like I would break a piece of the front end suspension every time we would go out in it. So I was kind of feeling like this vehicle might be somewhat similar with that suspension, that independent suspension up front. But really, this thing is a few years newer than the 3rd generation 4Runner. And I gotta say, whatever they did to the front end here, it just feels bomb-proof, and it just handles bumps and corrugations so well. Yeah, that's really all I can say about the Prado. It's done great for us. It feels super solid. It's been super reliable, and it's just kind of no nonsense, right? Could use a bit of a bump on the ground clearance, but overall, I would definitely recommend the Prado with the 1GRFE. This is all of the equipment that we use to cross Australia from Sydney to Perth. Some of the things I would do differently is I would get a second set of max tracks because we only had 2 max tracks and could have really benefited from 4, 1 for each wheel in sometimes, because there was a time or two when we got stuck on the beach, the tide was coming up, and 2 max tracks it wasn't enough to cut it, and we had to get snatched out. So I would add a second set of max tracks to our recovery kit. For sleeping, the Swag did great. Our kitchen box with the small amount of equipment in there did great for us. It didn't leave us wanting anything else in either of those aspects, sleeping or cooking. For water solutions, I think we did okay. Like I said earlier, I would have added a 3rd jug, a 3rd 10 or 20 liter water jug, just for security purposes, because water is, as we all know, very important. If we had the time and the resources, I would have loved to install a winch on the Prado, but unfortunately we had neither the time or the resources. We had to use what we had, and it was great. Now, I wouldn't say that we needed a winch ever. There were always people around to help us out, but there were times when it got a little scary to be stuck on the beach when nobody was around yet, and nobody had pulled up to help us yet, and we were kind of on our own digging. The max tracks didn't work. We were thinking, you know, how the heck are we going to get ourselves out of a situation like this? So if we had the time and the resources, I would have loved to use a winch. They're just great insurance purposes, but you definitely don't need one to go out and have a great adventure. And most of the time, I would say that there are usually people around that can come help you if you get stuck. But if you're traveling solo vehicle, just the 2 of you, or just yourself in one vehicle, you can't really go wrong with a winch. It's a great insurance purpose. That's all for this video, guys. As you can see, it really doesn't take a lot of equipment to get out there. You do not need to throw the whole catalog at a vehicle to go out and have a wicked adventure and cross a continent if you feel like it. That's what we did, and we had a wonderful time with pretty bare basic stuff. All of this stuff is what we needed to have. We don't have anything extra, nothing. We could have added some things for more comfort, some nicer kitchen equipment, some nicer chairs, you know, a better sleeping platform. We could have done stuff like that, but in reality, this is the basic stuff that will get you out there and get you back and allow you to have a wonderful adventure. It's everything you need and nothing you don't.
So how much did all of this cost? And how much of that money did we get back at the end of the trip after selling everything and flying home? All of the camping equipment came out to be around $1,100. The cost of the vehicle, when purchased, was $6,500, for a grand total of $7,600. When it came time to sell, we included all of the equipment in with the sale of the vehicle to avoid a headache by having to sell each individual piece of equipment separately. We sold everything for $7,000. So all in all, it cost us about $600 to use this equipment to drive across Australia. That's not such a bad deal in my books. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel, and we'll see you in the next adventure.